All right, folks, welcome to our webinar, Don't Stop Believing, Continue the Customer Journey with Your Website. And as you might have known, maybe you didn't, this webinar was inspired by the band Journey, which inspired us to make this webinar about the customer during your website's impact. So I am Spencer. I am the Sales and Marketing Coordinator at Keystone Click, and I will be one of the guides on the journey. And joining me today is
Erin, and I'm an account coordinator here at Keystone Click. And we're so excited to talk through the customer journey today.
Yep, and a little bit about us before we start. So Keystone Click is a strategic digital marketing agency, and we help our clients build brand awareness and generate leads online by conducting research and collecting insights that allow us to build a plan focused on the goals of the client. So let's get this journey started.
Awesome. And before we really get going, we'd just like to go over kind of our roadmap for today's agenda. So we're going to start out defining the customer journey for you. We're going to quickly touch on how to drive traffic to your website, and then we're going to get into the meat of it as far as website design and navigation best practices for continuing that customer journey. We'll touch briefly on landing pages, and then we'll talk about conversion rate optimization and A/B testing before finally quickly talking about how you can create your own roadmap.
For sure. So let's start off by defining the customer journey. So the definition of the online customer journey is it really describes the consumer's path throughout all product, brand, and company touch points that help enable their decision making. And it's called a journey because they can bounce between different stages throughout the entire journey. And they can also visit your website multiple times throughout the journey. So the two most important stages when it comes to your website are the awareness and consideration stages. So in terms of awareness, 74% of all B2B brands buying agents do their research online before deciding to buy from a supplier. And one way that a company can optimize their visibility during the awareness stage is by practicing their thought leadership. And this really helps your audience become aware of your company throughout the journey. And then in terms of consideration, that's where your client is actually considering buying your product or service. And the reason why those two first stages are so important is that studies have shown that about 80% of your website traffic occurs from visitors during those first two stages. And then after that comes the purchase when the client actually decides to buy from your brand. And then customer experience and engagement, which is really you continuing their engagement through your thought leadership, emails, any content you're throwing on social media. And then after that, they are loyal to you. They're your advocates. And that is the goal of any customer journey. So what role does your website play in the customer journey? So your website serves 6 primary purposes. The first is to help you get found. So your website needs to be optimized for search to help you get found online. Then you want to build that trust. And your website is the key element in that. So once a person arrives on your website, it needs to validate their challenges. Your website needs to function in a way that your customers need it to and expect it to. And then your website needs to educate your clients. So your website should teach people how to recognize what their problems and challenges actually are. And then once they do that, you want to inform them about how your product or service can help them solve their problems. So then after that, your website needs to nurture them. So oftentimes people are going to come back to your website multiple times before making a purchase. So your goal is to capture their email address and to continue to create valuable content that is relevant to the stage that they're in and nurture them throughout the sale. And then finally, you're converting. And then a conversion can be something as simple as subscribing to a newsletter, scheduling an appointment, or actually making a purchase. So conversion opportunities need to be the element of the design on your homepage that help them guide through your journey. So let's get into driving traffic a bit. So we're going to start off with a myth or fact. If you click through. So fact or myth, branded searches should be the focus of your search strategy. If we could get a few answers in the chat, participation points. I see a few myths. Let's see what the answer is. So the answer is myth. That is correct. And so branded searches do not need to be the focus on your search strategy. And in reality, 71% of B2B researchers start their research with just a generic search. So that's why your keywords are so important. Which brings us to touching briefly on SEO. So undertaking keyword research allows you to really see the real terms that searchers use while looking for the solution that your business offers. So once you know those keywords, you can optimize your website so it ranks highly in those terms using keywords. So that's the research keywords part where you're going to find the keywords that have lowest competition that people are searching that you can really take advantage of. And then you're going to take a look at the competition, see what keywords they own, where they rank, where they're appearing in search queries when people are searching certain things. Then you want to identify that opportunity. And as I mentioned before, those are going to be the keywords that have low competition that you can really take advantage of. Then you're going to want to create a strategy for how you're going to create content that's going to drive people to your websites through those keywords. Then, of course, you're going to measure results and continue to optimize throughout the process.
So now that you've driven some site or driven traffic to your website, I should say, let's get into a little bit about your site design and navigation and what that should look like. So first impressions, your homepage, and there's a popular print phrase, above the fold. And the same is true for your website. When that website first loads for a user, what they see automatically is the most important thing. And really, when it comes down to it, your site should cater to your ideal customer. That's why knowing your audience is important, because you can kind of design your website and more specifically your navigation to answer the questions that brought them to your site in the first place. Navigation should be intuitive. Don't make it complicated. When users have to dig or they can't find what they're looking for, they're going to leave automatically. And actually 40% of website visitors will leave a website if they can't find what they're looking for in the first few seconds. So it's really important that you make a good impression. And getting that first click through is key as well. When we talk about the customer journey, introducing them to who you are and what your brand is important, but you want to guide them through your site. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that, but definitely encouraging that first click to somewhere else, whether it be your blog page, your contact page. There's a lot of design tricks and elements, images, colors, fonts, and other visual effects that you can use to do that.
Yeah, this is the three-step billboard test, going back to the homepage, is a really good way to make sure that you're giving your audience what they're looking for right away. As Aaron mentioned, 40% of users are going to leave right away if they can't find what they're looking for. So the first step is making it clear what you offer. Does your homepage show exactly what you offer? So if we click, there are offerings. We've got them front and center so people can see them right away. And then you want to make sure that your homepage shows that you're the expert, that you have credibility. So is that credibility easily defined? So down there shows some statistics of how many businesses we've partnered with and on certain projects. So that is where our credibility comes from. And then calls to actions. Can you find that call to action with ease? And that really goes back to where Aaron was saying it's crucial to get that first click. So you want that call to action to be easy to find and to have multiple throughout that page. So do this little activity and see how effective your homepage is. So back to call to actions. What would you say makes for an effective call to action? Once again, audience participation. So I'm seeing straight to the point, demanding, lets know next steps. Yep, those are all fantastic answers. So let's really get into it. So I think this is Aaron right here.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got, a list of key questions to go through for every call to action. You want to ask yourself, does that call to action serve a specific purpose? What are you directing them to? And more importantly, does that call to action define that purpose for the target audience? So again, if you're encouraging somebody to download a white paper, you want your call to action to say, download now. If you want them to contact you, say, contact us or schedule a call. Be really clear and concise when it comes to what your call to action is actually asking your audience to do. So another key component is whether or not the call to action is interesting or interactive. Does it invite users to click through, right? Again, going back to those design elements and tricks to really encourage them to take that next step. Does it create a sense of urgency? That also will encourage audience users to click through. If you say, download now, having that now is important. And then does it appear more than once? Do you phrase it in a couple different ways? Is it, slightly variable for your audience to wherever stage they're at, they manage to actually follow through?
100%. So we're going to take a look at the Admiral's site, who we recently partnered with to create their website, to kind of take a look at their call to actions on their homepage. So first, does their call to action serve a purpose? Yes, it's clear. It's to get tickets. They want to sell tickets. So their main call to action is always going to be tickets, get tickets. So do they define that purpose? Yes. It says get tickets, or join now. So those are all making sure that people know exactly what's happening for each call to action. How applicable are they to use? When you click that tickets or get tickets, is that taking you to a place to get the tickets? And I know we can't tell in this example, but they do. And then do they create a sense of urgency? The bottom says join today. Just that today creates a sense of urgency with their audience to be more motivated to, get tickets today. And then does it appear more than once? Yep, it appears 3 times and uses slightly different language each time to really make sure that their audience is seeing different call to actions that really take them to the same area. So some other best practices for call to action. So the first is going to be to use actionable text. So if you want to create a sense of urgency for your underlying message, then you want to portray your call to action in a way that consumers jump at the opportunity. So you really want to focus on your wording and make it more of an order or a demand rather than a suggestion. And it's more likely that people are going to, when they come in contact with an actionable message, will actually want to engage with it to see what the hype's all about. And then you want to consider your colors. So you want to use colors that will make it pop on the page. You want to make sure it aligns with your brand's guidelines and that really goes well with the color combination, and really make sure it's not hiding on the page, and that when people are on your homepage or your landing page, whatnot and so forth, it's obvious where the call to action is and they can find it and click it with ease. And the last but not least, you want it to be short and sweet, and you really should not have your call to action be more than a couple words. And your consumer should know exactly what they're doing by clicking the call to action, what the action will be when they click that button. So rather than make it more confusing by adding multiple words and outcomes, narrow it down to a short phrase with a corresponding action. And that's really crucial so that they know what's happening next and that it's easy to find, easy to know what's going on, where it'll take them next.
Yeah, and some of these examples we have on the page, there is some surrounding text nearby, but you see that button really stands out with an additional color, and it's that short key phrase that clearly defines what you're asking them to do.
Without a doubt.
And so we would be remiss if we didn't also talk about behavior tracking really quick. So with any kind of analytics or website traffic tracking, measuring, you can see kind of how users interact on your site. And that's really important from the standpoint where when we think about the customer journey, it's important to not only imagine the ideal way that customers are going to come to your site and interact with it, but to see if that's actually what's happening. And if it's not, how to make and where to make those adjustments so that it is more clear for the audience. I've got a very complicated sitemap here as an example, but with any site, you're going to have an outline of your home page, your contact page, any child pages you have within that. But then the question is, are they following the journey that you're setting up for them? And this is where, Google Analytics comes in handy. We've got a behavior flow chart here, and you can see, they're starting out most often on the home page, but from there, if they're going to a couple of different pages where you're just defining who you are as a company, that that's maybe not as clear as it could be on the home page. And that's just one example where there's a lot of insights to gain from behavior tracking, and really ensuring that whatever you're doing in terms of calls to action, content, etc., is guiding them through that process of eventually converting, however you've defined that for your brand.
So let's take a look at landing pages. So first, we're going to what's different between a landing page and just a normal web page. So your landing page is going to be focused on one specific offering, event, or service. It's not going to be there just to inform the visitor at like a normal web page, but the goal is to convert and to drive conversion. So this could be newsletter, webinar, any offering, any event, really just trying to get people to click and join that. So in terms of what you want on your landing page, you want to have it be very value-driven language, and you want it to have very strong offerings. So you want it to have what the customers and products are looking for, and what value you can provide them from what they're looking for, and really try to use that value forward language to let them know what the value in the service is. And like I said before, it's all about driving conversions. And then for your call to actions, you want that language to be consistent with your language on the page. So you want that value to just be there and let them know what the next steps are, as I was getting to before we were talking about call to actions. Then touching a bit on dynamic landing pages. So this can be a personalization elements like your person's name, a company, a title, or an interest, or it can be advertisement specific. And then the key when it comes to landing pages to constantly be testing and to track which keywords or page versions have the most conversions. So you want to answer these questions. What device are people using to access that landing page? What types of content are getting good responses? Where prospects are coming from? Are they coming from ads? Are they coming from emails? Are they coming from direct traffic or organic traffic? And then find the search terms that people are using to get to that landing pages. So you really only want to test one thing at a time so you can find what's working and what's not, and then constantly be improving. Then some other things to consider are making sure that whatever piece of content they're coming from, if it's from an email, if it's from a social media post, wherever they're coming from to the landing page, make sure that the language on the landing page is matching up with the language from that piece of content, and that the value proposition is the same, and any specifics from the offering are the same. That just builds the trust and just helps you drive those conversions. And then another thing is any videos that can be added to your landing page are great. They can take apart large chunks of text, and they also establish a level of trust. And then, of course, try to make them visually appealing.
Yeah, for sure. Your landing page is a campaign's best friend.
That's
It's
right.
going to help you more easily convert, like Spencer was saying, than just directing them to your website. And Spencer mentioned dynamic content, and we wanted to get into that just a little bit more. Dynamic content really is going to pull from your CRM, where you have all your contacts and leads stored. They can more easily pull from that. So we have an example here. This is an ongoing joke in our webinar series, but if Keystone Click were to close down as an agency and we opened a pizza parlor instead, as an example business, what would that look like? And specifically for dynamic content, I've got two landing pages here. They're using first names, like Spencer said, so they recognize that we are that specific contact. And then the pizza images are different as well. And so this could be something that maybe you're just testing, as far as maybe the more people that see pepperoni click through on the deal. But it could be dynamic as well, where you've saved our previous order. In my case, I would have ordered a Hawaiian pizza. I know that's a little controversial, but um, if our lead system recognizes that that was my last order, putting an image there would maybe make me more likely to take them up on that deal, because it's a pizza that the automation and the dynamic content recognizes that I like. And so, speaking of dynamic content and A/B testing, we're also going to talk a little bit about conversion rate optimization. So A/B testing is similar to dynamic content in that you're changing one thing at a time to see if it encourages people to click through and quote unquote convert. As Spencer was saying, as it's important to test, even, especially landing pages, but also your website when you're first starting out. But you only want to change one thing at a time. If you change, I don't know, 5 different elements on your website all at once, it doesn't give you a clear indication of what element really is driving those additional results. So again, going back to some of the design elements we're highlighting here, changing the images that you use or a specific color scheme, like in the photo we have, you could change fonts, visual effects, etc. Really, the goal of A/B testing is to improve your conversions and where actually people are clicking next and ultimately turning from prospects into customers. And so conversion rate optimization, as we've defined it, is the process of, again, optimizing your site or landing page based on user behavior to improve the likelihood of them taking action. And so definitely, as we stated, from testing and analytics and behavior tracking, conversion rate optimization is often driven by data. And what results do you have already on how users are in real time interacting with your website? But there is a little bit of a gut instinct involved. And just an example to kind of prove that, I pulled the world's worst website ever, and quickly you can kind of tell side by side what works and what doesn't, right? And so oftentimes it's a lot about data and what's driving, but at the end of the day, you know your business and you know that look and feel, and you also kind of know what's going to make good design. And so lastly, before we close out, we wanted to quickly talk about creating your own roadmap, really how to start imagining the ideal customer journey, so that way you can build ways that are effective in driving traffic, what your website should look like, and ultimately how to improve that conversion rate. So when it comes down to it, the customer journey is another way of looking at your sales funnel, right? You're starting at the top of the funnel where you're raising awareness on a number of platforms, whether that be email, social media. It's that first kind of touch point you have with users, prospects, customers, or otherwise. And then your middle of the funnel is kind of guiding them through, introducing them to your website, where they can start to make some evaluations of, is this what I'm looking for in terms of answering my questions, or a specific product that I'm looking for, or service, etc. That's really kind of, you're taking them again from that top funnel, middle of the funnel, so they can start considering whether or not you're the right fit. And then finally, you want to convince them that you are, and that takes them to the bottom of the funnel where you really are maximizing your conversions and having them convert into customers.
Yeah, and In summary, well, as you know, as I mentioned before, that this webinar was inspired by the band journey, which led us to this journey about the customer journey. So, and as we know, your website plays a massive role in that customer journey. It's not only is it important to drive traffic to your website, but in order to drive those conversions, your customers really need to find what they're looking for or know what to do next once they get there. And so your homepage and navigation are the make or break point for when it comes to users engaging with your website. And as Aaron mentioned, it's so important to just get that first click to really start the journey. So that really shows that they've found what they're looking for and they're not going to be one of that 40% that leave right after visiting your website if they can't find what they want. And then, as we mentioned before, calls to action are the most effective way to guide users through your website and in terms of landing pages and help you convert.
Yeah. Calls to action are kind of your main arsenal. If you take nothing else away, definitely calls to action, extremely important.
So, and then get into our website strategy session offers. So what's included in that is a high level website audit. So we're going to use some of our internal softwares to really take a look at what your website's doing well in terms of navigation, in terms of keywords, see how you're doing in driving traffic, and give you a bunch of actionable tips of how you can make improvements to make sure your website is performing at its highest level. Then we're going to review some navigation best practices. As we mentioned before, navigation is crucial to continuing that customer journey and helping your customer find what they want. So this offering is exclusive to people who have joined our webinars or webinar viewers, and the investment is $99. And if you're interested, head to keystoneclick.com/website strategy, and I will throw that into the chat. Erin, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great offer. We've had a couple of people already sign up and go through the process, and they just find it really valuable to have kind of an expert take on what they can do to immediately improve their website. So it's a great deal. We definitely encourage you to either check it out more or definitely sign up. And we also want to plug the rest of our website design webinar series. We've loved being able to kind of go through this topic. Our next one is cocktails and case studies with the Milwaukee Admirals. So we are so excited. Like Spencer mentioned before, we partnered with the Milwaukee Admirals to build their new website. And so this webinar kind of happy hour, you'll get a cocktail recipe to make and then sit down as we talk with the Milwaukee Admirals about the process and what they were looking for and what problems we were helping them to solve. And then the following ones, we have SEO and content, looking a deep dive into there, definitely important. The two go hand in hand. And finally, a popular favorite in our webinars series overall is the expert panel discussion. We'll have a couple of guests on. It'll be a nice Q&A. So definitely to learn more about all of these and to sign up for individual webinars or subscribe, you can go to keystoneclick.com/webinars.
And I will say that for the SEO and content webinar on June 10th, they're bringing the dream team back together. Myself and Aaron will be leading that. So that is extra motivation to join. So make sure you don't miss that one.
Absolutely. We're so excited. And with that, I think we're going to round out. We'll take some time for questions, Q&A, so you can go ahead and start putting those in the chat. But definitely check us out. You can also contact us afterwards. We've left our contact information here. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.